Apple held their WWDC 25 conference this past week, if I'm not too late to upload this video. And that made a few headlines because of their operating system releases. So before I go ahead with what the whole headline was and what's my take on it, let's talk about what are operating systems. So imagine operating systems as a person. A person can do a lot of things. It can write on paper. It can make spreadsheets. It can do calculations. It can do a lot. But there are certain things that it can't do, or can do, but probably shouldn't. Like your operating system can directly connect to the internet, but probably shouldn't, because there's a lot of malpractices happening on the interweb, and you don't want everyone to directly have access to your hardware device. So you employ a browser. Like a person can probably fight its own lawsuits, but shouldn't. So they employ an attorney. Hence, apps exist. Apps are third-party things or can be pre-installed on an operating system that help things work. That's the whole operating system. An operating system in general does everything on your hardware, at least the parts where you need to directly interact with it in your daily life. So let's take a look at a few operating systems. There's Windows 11, the one which I'm most familiar with, not Windows 11, just Windows in general. I've used Windows since I was a wee little child, and I'm only going to talk about design here. And Windows 11 came out as if like it was a huge new thing. It wasn't. It was Windows 10 with a fresh new coat of paint. Pretty much the basic Windows that we know about. It plays games. That's all I need to know. Then there's Mac OS. I got more familiar with Mac OS in the past few years since I got my own MacBook. I have known about Mac OS. I've used other people's Mac OS in my school and from my friends, but I never owned a MacBook myself. I've been familiar with it since these past 2 years, and it is a fresh new experience coming from Windows where I have to do a lot of maintenance work myself. Mac OS I never have to do it. Then there comes Linux. So Linux is basically build your own adventure, D&D kind of thing. You think up stuff and then you do it. So you install Linux, then you think that, it'll be good if I have a browser. And then you do it via a terminal, because if you do it any other way, people on the internet will be very angry. And you can make Linux look like anything you want, literally anything. Like, it can be just a terminal if you want. It can be the most sickest looking sci-fi looking piece of interface that you've ever used. It can be a mix of both. It can be minimalistic. It can be over the top. It can look like Windows if you want. It can look like Mac if you want. Linux UI is what you make of it. You have a lot of control in your hands. Now, let's go back a few years when things were good. When you were kids, you had some bright-eyed dreams. Windows Vista or Windows 7, they're pretty similar. From what I remember, I never used Windows Vista. I used Windows 7. But when things tried to look kind of realistic, like things tried to kind of look like blurry glass panels, tinted glass panels, clocks tried to look realistic, recycle bin tried to look like a realistic bin. But yeah, a lot of glowing elements, a lot of shiny elements, a lot of 3D looking elements. So everything trying to emulate what real life looks like. Then there was also the Mac OS version of it, which is Mac OS. At that time, I think they had big cat names like Leopard and Snow Mountain Lion and stuff. My first interaction with macOS, it's funny because there's something called Rainmeter. I don't know if you guys have used it. My friend used Rainmeter on his Windows computer to make it look like macOS Mountain Lion, and that was my first interaction with a macOS looking thing ever. But yeah, you can see very similar aesthetic, very similar glowy, realistic 3D aesthetics that kind of jump out of the screen and make you look at them. This whole era can be called Frutiger Arrow. So this is a page they can look at and read about it. But essentially, Frutiger Arrow is a type of aesthetic that it's a term to define a type of aesthetic from that era. Like how macOS looked back then, how Windows looked back then, or in general, any kind of marketing material, even apps that you would download have this certain 3D realistic, semi-realistic look to it. But as you can see, it kind of does a lot. It's really busy. Like if you look at it, there's so many elements. It's all trying to fight for your attention. And like this whole semi-realistic thing is also called skeuomorphism. So when the first iPhone came out, they embraced this skeuomorphic look when things are trying to emulate realistic things that you use every day. But at this time, they were trying to teach you how to use a new digital interface because touchscreens were new to the general public. So yeah, this was kind of helpful. Like if I have a TV icon instead of YouTube logo, I would know that, oh, it's something for entertainment, probably. Same with videos. But as you can see, if like you go too hard into this kind of aesthetic, it's very busy. Everything's trying to look too important. Everything has a glow, a shadow, a backlight, some highlights. Everything's jumping out of the screen too much. It's very busy. Like everything is trying to fight for attention, and hence nothing gets your attention. Sorry, I skipped a few slides ahead, but yeah. So people thought, how about we chill out a bit? We kind of go back a bit. We simplify things. What if we use simple colors, simple icons, 2D icons, no gradients, no highlights, no shadows? So what came out of it is Windows 8. People hated this thing. It was too flat. It was hard to navigate. And there were a lot of other reasons to hate Windows 8, but it tried something different, right? And it was trying to stick to it. At this time, there was something called Windows Phone, if you have never heard of it or seen it, but Windows 8 was a breath of fresh air. At least for me, when I first looked at it, I was kind of impressed. Like, whoa, this is different. My 12-year-old mind could not wrap my head around this, like what I was looking at, and everything looked so readable and easy to look at. So I was just impressed overall. But this is where the era of simplification came in. Google came out with their material design, what do you call it? Material design principles. And they had this whole talk about how they researched this whole design aesthetic by laying sheets of chart paper or like kind of cardboard one on top of each other and see how the shadows interact. I never liked it, to be honest. Like this whole era of design was kind of like, do we have to follow this? Like, is there no better way? I mean, this was a new one, but these are how all the apps kind of, they were pushing to look like. And I never, like, this never felt good to me, nor did Windows 7, to be fair. Like I didn't hate it. I kind of liked it better than whatever this is, but there is still something missing. And of course, then came the infamous iPhone redesign, the first biggest redesign since the first iPhone. It was iPhone's time to showcase what they have for flat design. So they stuck with gradients. They had blur. So since now everything was so flat, they had to use a lot of background blur in places to kind of blur things out and show hierarchy, which was good. This looked good to me. Like when my mom first got an iPhone 6, or I think iPhone 5, one of the best ones ever made. It looked very refreshing, yet like punchy. The colors were nice. I mean, iPhone screens were nice back then, at least to my child eyes. But yeah, after this, things were pretty much on and off. People tried new things. But in these past few years, hardware has become really powerful, and people are trying to see how we can push the limits. So this is where Apple's newest keynote comes in. Apple changed up their whole design system, their whole design language to use realistic materials, and they're using a glass-like material which also transforms. So think of it more of a raindrop on your screen, and then how things behind the screen kind of react to that raindrop, and they're changing everything about this. So like from their icons to notifications, lock screens, everything. And we'll see how the reaction, what people felt about this update. But as you can see here, this whole interface feels like you're interacting with realistic glass. At least that's what they're going for. And it shifts the light or the hue behind that material. It's not just blurring it, it's bending the light. They're trying to emulate how real glass ends or bent glass kind of refracts or reacts with light behind it or things behind it. So you can see how there's a slight glow on the glass, even if the content is in front of the glass, and then they show how it translates to all the default iOS apps like camera, photos, and they're in general trying to make everything feel very reactive, interactive, and like change according to the context of the screen, depending on what you're doing on the screen. So this is their whole new design language. Let's see what the reaction to this was. So people are saying, welcome back, Vertigo Arrow. This looks busy mostly because of the background, but you can see what they mean, right? Like this kind of a globe effect, these bubbles and water droplet effects, and all these translucency and transparency. That's a weird way to say it, transparency and translucency on the interface itself. Some people just said that this could be taken as a positive or negative, but some people just straight up like started roasting it. So you can see there's an issue with this, that the white text on a light background is barely visible. And even in the notification center, it's kind of dims the background, blurs the thing, but still everything is like there's no contrast between things. Everything is trying to, again, it's the same problem of everything trying to be in focus at all times. So people started kind of hating on it. And so you can see here, even this, like people are saying Steve Jobs, but whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. But you can see it looks kind of bad. I'm not trying to defend this, but you need to remember that this is a developer beta, and that too the first one. It will have problems. It is going to have problems, and they're in time till the next iPhone releases and this new update is available for the public. They're going to try to fix it. That is the point of releasing a developer beta, so that the developers can revamp or redesign or restructure their apps depending on these new updates. So again, you can see people are talking how like it's not accessible. Like these people at Apple are now thinking how hard it might be to read things with apps with an absolute transparent background. But what I want to talk about is the absolute insane engineering work that went behind this. So this is like, I'm not sure if this is the Apple thing, but you can see at certain places, like see, this is in the lock screen customization. It is not just simply blurring it. There's highlights on top of the button, and it's reacting to how close or far the content is. And even here, it's not just blurring the background. There's reaction, there's refraction to the image that is forming behind that glass panel. And even this is from the mobile Safari. So you can see how at the edges, the light bends. So it is not just a simple 2D effect. It has to be some kind of graphic intensive, like it's using your GPU to kind of render it in that certain way. And like there's some maths involved and some crazy coding stuff that I cannot talk about, but I'm just being impressed over here. And what this means is, this is all these little details. This means that these companies, at least Apple, thinks that real-time reactionary interfaces are possible now. The hardware is at a place where you can make a dynamic interface that reacts to content on the screen in not a static manner, and it will still run flawlessly. Because that's what they're taking a bet on right now, from what I'm seeing. Because this would not work with phones like a few years ago. It will lag so much. Like I'm pretty sure if anyone of you used to do those iOS jailbreaks and install a lot of effects, it would slow down your phone. Now they're taking a bet that it wouldn't. And now that this is a better way to prepare for the future, that when interfaces are not just on your 2D phone screens, but in, let's say, Vision Pro or any AR, VR kind of environment, this is what that future would be. This is what the future of that interface would be. So people are saying like it's similar to Windows Arrow, sure, but you need to realize that this Windows Arrow is just it's just a shadow with some blurs. It's not exactly dynamically reacting to the content behind it. So maybe I am wrong about saying that the hardware is strong enough to now do it. I may be wrong in saying that, but I feel that's why we have not seen this so widely available in other spaces, and hence like now they're starting to push it. So you can see a talk that they did on WWDC on how liquid glass works and what they did to make it work, but you can see how it kind of refracts, and no simple 2D effect could achieve that. And some cool people on Twitter that I've seen are trying to recreate it using Blender on their websites. So I don't know how they're doing it. I want to figure out for myself. I'm and I don't want to do whatever they're doing. But yeah, let's see how that turns out. You can see some cool examples of people actually trying to achieve that curved refraction look on their glass materials. And again, this is a person I really agree with their take. All platforms, iOS, Windows, Android, Mac, have huge amounts of motion and dynamics. It's not about glass refraction shader. Really, it's about everything, how it behaves. Building static design now is the same how to drive a car without engine and wheels. So he's saying that everything needs to be dynamic, and simple static design tools are not going to cut it to develop these kind of interfaces. So you have to get into actually playing with these shaders with a tool of your choice, whatever you choose to use. There's this tool called Play. I have talked about this in my previous videos, but essentially they're going to start using Apple's Liquid Glass natively on their tool, and you can use that to use some of Apple's native components to build or test your apps. But yeah, this is an interesting time in tech because now people are open to doing new things again. And it was true even before. You could do new and different things before, like this developer called Not Boring. They have been making some cool apps before this ever happened, like Airbnb, making these 3D icons that are absolutely a delight to look at. And you could have done it before too, but now that Apple is doing it, more people would be doing it. But the whole point is your interfaces now can be 3D materials. It can be shaders. It can do so much more than just be a simple button. It can morph, it can transform. So I don't know how this is going to translate to everyday use cases of how a simple website would function in the future, but these are interesting times, and you can make a different take on something that has existed for years, and that might just work out. But that's it for me. If you have a different take, feel free to leave that in the comment section. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.